Is property investment still the right move in 2022? Today we're going to explore it and answer all your questions. Let's go! Okay, so it has been a really interesting time in the economy in general, from Brexit to COVID and all the rest of the things. So the question of whether property investment is still the right place for your money in 2022 is a good question, one that we'll endeavour to answer in the next 10 minutes. So yes, it's been a tough time. In my 7 years in the property market, the government and legislation has continued to throw challenges at us. Stuff like Section 24, I think, was the first one I ever had. So a quick one on that. Section 24 basically took away the right for investors who held the properties in their own name to use tax legislation in a normal business way, i.e. income, expenses, pay tax on the profit. It doesn't work that way anymore if you own the property in your own name, and that was Section 24. What did we do? Everybody went to a limited company and bought in that shell. Next up, they wanted to hit you with an extra additional cost of stamp duty, an extra 3% on the property price. Bang, straight through the nose. You were paying out hand over foot. But in the end, we just had to factor that into the property deal because we have to keep moving. These things don't stop you. You need to understand the legislation, understand how to calculate that in and move on. There's always a way of getting through it and always a way of finding a solution. Next up, it was the tenant finder's fee ban for a letting agency. You might think, well, that's okay, I'm not a letting agent. But actually, for you as an investor, it was a direct cost. The tenant finder's fee ban meant that letting agents couldn't charge the tenant on a new tenancy to set them up, and that used to be quite a hefty charge, and that's where probably 20-25% of their revenue was created. The government just chopped that out with one single legislation. What did letting agents do? They couldn't survive without it. They came over to the investor, the landlord side, and said, we're going to need to take more fees from you. People went about it different ways. Some people just put their percentage up, so maybe they were managing at 10%, now they're managing at 12, 13, 14%. Some people significantly hit the landlord with a tenant finder fee that side. Whichever way, it was still the government making it more difficult. Now, the one thing that makes property fantastic first off the bat is what the government don't tend to see, and I find this absolutely bonkers within a cycle, is that if they throw more costs at landlords, obviously landlords are a business, and what tends to happen all the way around the cycle is more and more costs get thrown at letting agencies, which are pushed onto landlords, which again in the end get pushed through to rents. All that happens is rents go up. The people that are hit the hardest are the people renting the property, and this has a horrible cycle of the government kind of compounding what they're saying that they're trying to protect. It never really works, and the good news is, as an investor, as a landlord, you find a way through to continuing to make a profit. So yes, it's been a rough ride, but we're still here. And when we're assessing whether property is still the right investment in 2022, you always have to look at the market trends in any investment cycle. Now, weirdly enough, it's never gone out of fashion to have a roof over your head. So from a market trend perspective, I don't think it ever will. So this bodes very well for you as a potential property investor. People will always need roofs over their heads. There is always going to be a need for housing. Market trend, it's a good one. Next up, leverage. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Try going to your bank and asking for £75,000 to invest into cryptocurrency based on the fact that you'll put in £25,000 and see what they say. The answer will be a resounding no. I'm sure if it's not, let me know. This is because they don't trust other asset classes, but they do trust property because it's insured, because it's tangible. Leverage is a massive, massive, massive piece of why property is the best asset class to be in. And that is still here, it's still ripe, there are still loads of lenders in the market, so that's still a big plus too. That takes us on to lending. Lending is massive, and I think we've just talked about it, so you're probably thinking, yeah, Mike, but is it the right time to be buying property right now in 2022? That's the question. And the Bank of England base rate has just gone up a couple of notches. Well, yeah, it has. And actually, the Federal Reserve in the US just went up 0.75% this week. So, panic. Stop. That is where we are right now, and the Bank of England base rate has been at an all-time low for a long time. So the incremental increases that we're seeing, we're in end of July 2022 currently. It will continue to go up from here for a little while, but rest assured, the whole modern economy cannot survive a base rate as we saw. You know, your dad will be sitting here going, well, back in my day, in mid-80s, it was at we had 10%. Yeah, I get it, but it's not going to happen. I can tell you why. The growth of all the cities and everything that we've built the modern economy on is based on the access to cheap or relatively cheap lending. The whole economy will completely capitulate if the base rate goes back up to those historical highs. That's not going to happen. But what is going to happen is there is going to be an increase, quite significant, 2-3% from where we are, and then I would see it level out. That doesn't really stop property from being the right investment at all. It's still leverageable, as we said. The bank will still lend. The rates will increase for a small while. You will fix them for a 3 to 5 year period of time, and we will wade through it. That's just the way it's going. Okay, there's a lack of housing in the UK. As we all know, it's a small island. We're very precious over our green belt, and we're not building enough houses. So there is a lack of housing, which means there is a supply and demand misbalance always in UK property, which means you're going to find it relatively easy to fill your houses. But as we discussed earlier, because of the increased costs in every scenario, whether that's just inflation or landlords getting hit with various legislation, the rent prices continue to go up. Now, what does this actually mean? It again just hits the renter harder. If people that are trying to save money to buy houses can't because their rent is increasing, therefore they're saving less money, and again the cycle is slightly backwards. But what this means for you as a landlord is generation rent will only go from strength to strength, and you will be in a marketplace with plenty of people wanting your product. And lastly, we're going to go into capital appreciation. Forget the micro cycle that we may or may not be in over the next 6 to 12 months and look at what you are doing. Now, I am assuming that we're talking about buying and holding investment property for the long term. If that is the case, then we need to step back and look at it from a 10-year picture. Trying to time the market of, is there going to be a 5% drop in the next 3 months, or is it going to be the 3 months after, or what we're going to see is a mug's game. If you're holding property for the long term, historically, property has gone up, doubled in price every 10 years. We always talk about 10 to 15 these days, but that is as absolutely accurate historically, therefore must be the safest bet for us going forward. Capital appreciation is where the real wealth gain kicks into place. That's what I'm currently loving in the UK property market, and that I would highly suspect will be there for you holding your properties for the next 10-15 years. Therefore, again, it's still the right play. Okay, so I think it is a resounding yes, property is still the right place for you to be investing your money in 2022. If, of course, you need a helping hand and need the power team, please feel free to get in touch with the MPP group and let us help you do that. If you have got some value from today, please like, share, follow, and do all that good stuff, and we look forward to speaking to you real soon.